Welcome back to the channel, everyone. If you're into insane WWII tech and secret Nazi projects that sound like they came straight out of a sci-fi movie, you're in the right place. Today, we're talking about Hitler's absolute wildest tank dream, the P.1000 Ratte, a 1,000-ton monster that was supposed to be a rolling land battleship, bigger than anything before or since. Imagine a tank so massive it could crush entire forests, mount guns from actual warships, and basically laugh at anything the Allies threw at it. Or at least that's what Hitler thought. This thing was approved by the Führer himself, and it almost got off the drawing board. Stick with me for this deep dive because we're unpacking the crazy history, the mind-blowing specs, why it was doomed from the start, and what might have happened if this beast ever rolled out. Let's jump right in. It all started back in 1941 when the German company Krupp was doing a study on Soviet heavy tanks. They were worried about monsters like the KV-1 and T-34 that were giving their panzers a hard time on the Eastern Front. Out of that research came the Panzer VIII Maus, which we know is the heaviest tank ever actually built at around 188 tons, but that was just the warm-up. One of Krupp's directors, a guy named Edward Grotte, who had a thing for gigantic designs, he'd even pitched 1,000-ton tanks to the Soviets back in the 1930s, took it way further. In June 1942, he pitched this insane idea to Hitler, a land cruiser, literally called Land Kreuzer, weighing a full 1,000 tons. Hitler was obsessed with big, intimidating weapons that could turn the tide of the war, so he loved it and gave the green light right away. By late 1942, Krupp had some preliminary drawings ready, and the project got the official name P.1000 Ratte. Rat meaning rat, which is kind of ironic because this thing was anything but small. It was probably a playful nod to the mouse, meaning mouse. The design was straight up bonkers. Picture this, the Rat would have been about 115 feet long, 46 feet wide, and 36 feet tall. That's like a small building on tracks. To handle that insane weight, it needed 3 massive tracks on each side, each one over 3 feet wide, for a total ground contact like a train. Armor? Up to 10 inches thick in places, made of hardened steel that only the biggest guns could hope to penetrate. And the firepower? Oh man, this is where it gets naval. The main turret was going to be a modified battleship turret with twin 280mm SKC/34 guns, the same massive cannons used on German warships like the Scharnhorst class. These bad boys could lob shells weighing over 700 pounds more than 20 miles away, turning the Rat into a mobile artillery fortress that could obliterate enemy positions from way behind the lines. For close-up threats, it had a secondary 128mm anti-tank gun, like the one on the Jagdtiger, plus a bunch of anti-aircraft weapons, 8 20mm flak guns, and a couple of 15mm autocannons to swat down planes. The whole thing needed a crew of at least 40 people, maybe more, and there was even talk of internal bays for motorcycles or small vehicles for scouting, plus room for storage and maybe even a little infirmary. Powering this beast was another headache. They planned to use marine diesel engines, either 2 huge 24-cylinder MAN engines from U-boats pumping out 8,400 horsepower each, or 8 smaller 20-cylinder Daimler-Benz ones from speedboats for a total of around 16,000 horsepower. They even thought about adding snorkels like on submarines so it could ford deep rivers without drowning the engines. Top speed? Supposedly around 25 miles per hour, but honestly, with that weight, it'd probably be way slower in real life. Now, why did this sound so appealing to Hitler? By 1942, the war was turning against Germany. The Soviets were pushing back hard, and the Allies were bombing factories left and right. Hitler was all about Wunderwaffen, these wonder weapons that could single-handedly win the war, like the V-2 rocket or jet fighters. The Ratte fit that fantasy perfectly. One of these rolling up would psychologically crush the enemy, demolish fortifications, and dominate any battlefield. It was meant to be unbreakable, unstoppable, a symbol of German superiority. But here's where reality kicks in. We'll get deeper into the flaws and Cancellation in the next part, but trust me, this thing had problems that made it impossible. If you're hooked already, hit that like button, subscribe for more crazy WW2 stories, and let's keep going. Okay, we're picking up right where we left off with the P.1000 Ratte, this absolute behemoth of a tank that Hitler was convinced could change everything. We covered the origins, how it got approved, and those jaw-dropping specs with battleship guns and submarine engines, but now let's get into the cold, hard reality of why this monster never left the paper and why, deep down, it was probably one of the dumbest ideas in military history. First off, the biggest problem was the weight. 1,000 tons is insane when you think about it. For comparison, the heaviest tank that actually fought in WW2 was the German Tiger II at about 70 tons, and even the super-heavy Maus prototype topped out at 188 tons and could barely move without breaking bridges or getting stuck in mud. The Ratte? It would have crushed pretty much every road, bridge, and railway in Europe. German engineers knew that standard rail gauges couldn't handle it, so transporting it anywhere would require building special massive rail cars or just driving it hundreds of miles, burning fuel like crazy and tearing up the ground. And bridges? Forget it. Most European bridges at the time were rated for maybe 50, 60 tons max. This thing would plunge straight into rivers. They talked about adding pontoons or making it amphibious somehow, but that was pure fantasy. Then there's the production nightmare. Building just one Ratte would have sucked up resources that could make hundreds of regular tanks. Those twin 280mm guns, they were already in short supply for the Navy, and diverting them to a land vehicle would weaken Germany's coastal defenses and battleships at a time when the Allies were bombing factories non-stop. Steel alone, thousands of tons of high-quality armored plate, would take months to produce, and by 1943, Germany was running low on everything thanks to the blockade and bombing campaigns. Manpower, too, a crew of 40-plus highly trained guys per tank when the Wehrmacht was already scraping the bottom of the barrel for soldiers. Fuel was another killer. Those massive engines would guzzle thousands of gallons just to move a few miles, and Germany's synthetic fuel plants were prime Allied bombing targets. One Ratte rolling around would need its own dedicated fuel convoy, making it a sitting duck for air attacks. Speaking of air attacks, that's the real Achilles heel. By the time the Ratte designs were circulating in late 1942 and early 1943, the Allies had total air superiority brewing. The Luftwaffe was getting shredded over Britain and the Eastern Front, and American bombers were hitting German industry hard. A slow-moving giant like the Rat, even with all those anti-aircraft guns, would be spotted from miles away and swarmed by hundreds of fighters and bombers. One good hit from a heavy bomb, or even rocket-firing Typhoons, and it's game over. No amount of armor protects against a direct hit on the roof or tracks. Tracks were another weak point. Each side had multiple track assemblies, but damaging just one would immobilize the whole thing, turning it into a massive stationary pillbox that the enemy could just bypass or pound from afar. And who actually killed the project? That honor goes to Albert Speer, Hitler's Minister of Armaments and War Production. In early 1943, Speer took one look at the plans and said, "No way. This is a waste of everything we don't have." He canceled the P.1000 Ratte and even the smaller P.1500 monster project, which was supposed to be 1,500 tons with an 800mm gun like the Schwerer Gustav railway cannon. Speer pushed for more practical stuff, like increasing Panther and Tiger production instead. By then, even Hitler had to grudgingly agree because the war situation was getting desperate. No prototypes were ever built, just some drawings and models, and today those blueprints are in archives, fascinating historians and tank nerds alike. But let's play the what-if game for a minute, because that's the fun part. Suppose Germany somehow built one or two Rat tanks by mid-1944, maybe by stripping resources from everything else. On paper, it could have been terrifying in specific scenarios, rolling up to smash Soviet fortifications on the Eastern Front, blasting bunkers from 20 miles away, or defending Normandy beaches against D-Day landings. One Ratte parked near the coast could theoretically outrange Allied naval guns and turn the invasion into a bloodbath. Psychologically, seeing this colossal thing would freak out enemy troops, pure terror weapon. But in reality, it'd probably break down constantly from mechanical stress, get bogged down in soft ground, run out of fuel, and become the #1 priority target for every Allied plane in Europe. Within days, it'd be a smoking wreck, and the resources wasted could have built thousands of cheaper, more mobile tanks or fighters that might have actually helped. The Ratte is the perfect example of late-war Nazi desperation. Big, flashy ideas that ignored logistics, air power, and basic common sense. It's why wonder weapons like this stayed wonders and never won the war. Today, the Ratte lives on in video games like World of Tanks or War Thunder, where it's a ridiculous beast players love to drive, and in model kits for history buffs. It even inspired modern concepts like multi-turret mega vehicles in sci-fi. But as a real weapon, total pipe dream. All right, that's the full story of Hitler's 1,000-ton monster tank, from crazy approval to quick cancellation and everything in between. If this blew your mind, smash that like button, drop a comment telling me if you think the Ratte could have made any difference or if it was always doomed. Subscribe for more deep dives into secret weapons and forgotten WWII tech, and hit the bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, stay curious, and I'll catch you in the next one.